So good to check back in with you after a few weeks. I'll just give you a little bit of a family update just to let you know what's been happening in and around our lives, and then conclude with a little glimpse of scripture. So we've had an extremely full and blessed summer so far. Started off with my folks coming over from Scotland for a bit of a visit with us. So that was the first time they've been over for about 4.5 years actually, so it was really amazing to have them back and get to enjoy the Okanagan with them again and just to really share some great family events. Now, one of the big events that we shared with them was Scott and Lydia. Scott's my oldest son, married to Lydia. They became parents of little Lennox. So we now have a grandson, and so that is just amazing, and it's kind of new territory that we're all trying to figure out. And he's a happy, healthy little man born about 3 weeks ago, and just a brilliant, beautiful addition to the family. So we're delighted with that and finding our feet in this new chapter that we're all in together. So it was great that my folks could be here for that. And they were also here for a wedding. And so our third son, Lewis, got married to his sweetheart, Liv, and they were married in New Denver. And so as a family, we went out there and had a great weekend out there for the wedding and the reception, etc. And just a big party, really a grand celebration that we all got to enjoy with our new little grandson and with my parents. And so there was just a wonderful sense of family being together for all of the right reasons and getting to enjoy all that with the different generations all together. So we've also been working along with Scott and Lydia and Taylor and Ross and sometimes Charlie and Bella out on our friend's farm, out in the Keenan's farm, where we're still building and trying to launch a fine meats business, and so participating in that as we're able and just trying to really get that off the ground in the coming months. So that's wonderful to be able to get to work with my kids and with good people in a good outdoor sort of productive, healthy project, and learning loads of new things and being stretched. And then along with that, continuing to do a bit of preaching throughout the summer, and now back into the videos, and then launching into the fall, doing some more theology work with the Alliance District Office and the ordination program that they're running that I get to contribute into. So a full and blessed summer, and now moving on into the fall. I'm continuing to read through the Old Testament, and I'm in Ezekiel at the moment. I'm going slowly through that in conjunction with some of the Psalms and with the work of Jeremiah as well, that interplay there. Now, here's an interesting thing. If you were a rabbi back in the early days, you weren't even trusted to read Ezekiel. You weren't allowed to read Ezekiel until you were 30 years old, because it was deemed to be one of the most complex and sophisticated and difficult to handle text of the whole Old Testament canon. So as we get into Ezekiel, we have to be prepared to get into some really tricky waters, and it certainly is. In fact, it takes us to some of the darkest and most difficult corners of the Old Testament, where there are judgments and there are visions and there are apocalyptic scenes and there are pronouncements against Israel and other surrounding nations for their idolatry and disobedience, etc. And honestly, it can really wear you down. It is some pretty harsh and difficult reading a lot of the time. But then the amazing thing is that as you go through it, thank goodness, it's punctuated with little moments of redemption. In the landscape of Mordor, if you will, there's these little slivers of sunbeam that break through and dispel the darkness. So there's little moments, for example, where Ezekiel has this vision of the dry bones and everything looks dead and broken and completely beyond repair, and yet the question is asked, can these dry bones live? And Ezekiel responds, Lord, only you know. And then he is challenged to prophesy over the dry bones. They come together, they form living flesh, and then this great army rises up. So there's these moments when all feels like it's in despair, and yet the redemptive foundation of God comes through to dispel the doom of the judgments. And it talks about as well how God takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but desires that they would relent and turn their hearts and be healed and brought back. So although it is harsh to read some of Ezekiel, it is also a reminder of the harshness of life, the difficulty, sometimes even the violence and the despair of human existence. And yet through it all, God being able to bring the sunrise after the darkest of nights. And in our circumstances, finding that to be true as well, that even when we can be in incredibly tough corners, facing questions we just can't answer, circumstances we don't feel there's any way through, and yet somehow in the creativity and in the patience and the providence of God, there are little slivers of light that can break through and give us the next step, and then the next step, until we find our way through the challenge and find our way through the season. So if you're facing Ezekiel kind of days at the moment, I would encourage you just to keep walking and keep trusting and keep leaning into the truth of God's wisdom and providence and his ability to never be in checkmate. He is never out of moves. There's always another move that God can bring in our lives to bring us into a better place. So hope you've had a great summer. Hope the fall looks good for you as well, and we will keep checking in and work our way through the rest of the scriptures till the end of the new year. Until next time, peace.